Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a relaxing weekend. For those who are new to Mast Cell 360, welcome if this is your first time joining us live. I'm your host, Jamie Fries-Miller. I'm a health coach here at Mast Cell 360, and today we're going to be talking about healing from MCAS, personalizing nervous system work. I'll be joined by Kimberly Quirk, lead practitioner here at Mast Cell 360, and Raelan Agle, who you may know from YouTube. She has a very large YouTube channel that shares a lot of healing stories from chronic illness. So we're so glad to have her here today. While people join on, if you want to let us know where you're joining from in the comments, we love seeing how global this community really is here at Mast Cell 360. Quick disclaimers, today's presentation is for informational and educational purposes. It's not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent illness, so please be sure to discuss any health recommendations with your healthcare provider. And just a reminder that some of the links shared during this presentation or on our website are affiliate links, which means Mast Cell 360 may take a very small commission if you purchase through us. We only recommend products that we love or use personally or use in the Mast Cell 360 practice. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about how mindset and the way we relate to our bodies can shape our healing process, the role of nervous system patterns, hypervigilance, and how to begin shifting, and some gentle practical examples of daily supports that you can do. And of course, if we have time, we will do a live Q&A. So please be sure to only ask your question one time. Keep it on the topic of today's show, which is nervous system. And please understand that we are unable to answer in-depth personal health questions. All right, I see people coming in from Maryland, Oregon Coast, Michigan, Saskatchewan, Canada. Great, so good to have you guys with us today. So let me introduce to you who we will have on as our special guest. Raelan Agle is a writer, an educator, and advocate who helps people recover from chronic illness, including ME, CFS, and long COVID. After walking her own healing journey through extreme sensitivity and debilitating health challenges, she now empowers others with practical steps and hope for recovery. You can find her through her YouTube channel, her books, and courses, where she shares scientific-backed strategies and a compassionate mindset shift to support the body's ability to heal. And she specializes in helping people rebuild trust with their bodies, calm the nervous system, and uncover the next steps forward, no matter how stuck they feel. We are big supporters of the nervous system work here. If you have been to these lives before, you know that we're a broken record when it comes to nervous system. So we're happy to introduce you to another thought leader in this space. So let me bring up our lead practitioner now, Kimberly Quirk, and our special guest, Raelan. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here. Honored to be a guest, a part of this.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. I think it's important to just keep sharing those stories of hope and healing. It really resonates with our audience to give them those little sparkles of hope every once in a while. And when somebody's healed, it's really important to share that this is possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Raelan, for those who are just meeting you, can you tell us a little bit about your personal health journey and how it led you to focus on recovery from chronic illness?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, my own health journey didn't start in childhood, but it started with my mother. So when I was about 5 years old, my mom got this unexplained illness. Went through the same patterns that everyone does or did back then. Doctors didn't know what was wrong. Eventually, over the years, she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And she remained unwell for the rest of her life and never did get better. It just got worse and worse and worse over time. And of course, no one had answers. She tried everything under the sun. And then within a year of her passing, I ended up getting chronic fatigue syndrome. So I got a really bad virus. It was just a flu. And it just wouldn't seem to go away. And I had no idea what was going on. I was determined it wasn't chronic fatigue syndrome after seeing what my mother had gone through. But of course, in time, I had to accept that it was. I was diagnosed with this, and I ended up living with it for about 10 years before finally fully getting past it. Everything under the sun. You could probably pick something. I've tried it. But now it's been about 6 years chronic symptom free, which is really exciting. So once I did get past this, because even 6 years ago, there weren't that many messages of hope out there. It was still really bleak when you'd go online. So I thought, I just need to share my story. I need people to know that some people are recovering. There is some hope. And then it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the complexity of chronic illnesses like mast cell, many people dealt with like years, just like your mom, of being dismissed and being misdiagnosed and not really understanding what's happened. What helped you stay really curious on your journey and keep looking for answers? What gave you hope?
In the beginning, I think it was sheer stubbornness and determination that I see in a lot of us, that this can't be my life. Like this just can't be it. And probably a naivete that somehow I was special and I would figure it out, and somehow the rules didn't apply to me and I was going to get past this. But of course, there were many times over the years where I would get really low and I would almost completely give up and, have severe depression set in. So it wasn't that I was always just like, yes, I will beat this. It was a roller coaster of never going to get past this to, yes, I can do it. And then a few years into my journey, I read a book about a guy who got past chronic fatigue syndrome, fully recovered. And it was the only person I'd ever heard about. And that just lit something up in me. And that really, at the end, when I went kind of all in on healing again, because the first couple of years I tackled it with everything I had. It was my full-time job. And that didn't get me very far. And then for a few years, I sort of just coasted trying to survive. And then I got really fired up again, like I'm going to get past this. And it was really sparked by knowing about this one individual who had done it. Like, if he did it, I could do it. And I'd also seen little things over the years that seemed to help me, but I hadn't had the time or the energy or the space to really get serious about trying some different ways of getting better. So with that hope that it was possible, combined with a renewed, like, okay, let's do this. I can't keep living the rest of my life with every single day being a struggle to get through. Because in those 10 years that, and I'm sure people listening are preaching to the choir, like there's never one easy day. There's easier days, but it's always a challenge to get through. It's like, how am I going to survive this day? So yeah, I had to get serious again.
And hope was so important for you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people in our audience, they often feel like their body is broken or not working like how they would expect it to. And, in some of your videos, when you interview people on your YouTube channel, you talk about, how being sensitive doesn't mean being broken. And so can you share a little bit more? Like, it sounds like that one book was kind of like a turning point in that shift in perspective. But can you talk about why that shift in perspective is really important for healing?
So many reasons. For one, it takes a lot to keep picking yourself back up and to keep going, because this is a really challenging thing to go through. There's no easy version of it. And hope is the fuel that pulls yourself back up and gets you out of bed day after day after day. And how can you achieve something if you don't even believe that it's possible? If you have no evidence that it's possible? So when you see that tangible proof, it's like, okay, I'm not delusional here. If I keep at it, it might take me a while. I'm going to get there. And also, it sounds like you talk about nervous system regulation a lot in this space. So I won't go into too much depth because it sounds like you have an understanding, but our thoughts, our emotions really impact our nervous system. And we think of it as, an overactive threat assessment system that's assessing danger, or maybe there was danger, but now it's past, but it's still stuck in that loop and it's giving you all these messages. And there's all these things that we can do that confirm for our brain and our nervous system that there is still a problem. And this can be that frustration with the symptoms, the depression, the fear, and all of those things. So the hope pulls you into a better mindset that puts you in a better space and kind of lets your nervous system take a little bit of a sigh of relief, and maybe things aren't as bad as they think. I mean, that's a bit of an overly simplification of it, but yeah, it ties into the bigger picture of recovery for sure.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about nervous system, and we work on nervous system with our clients, but feel free to reiterate like parts of the nervous system that you find really important on like the retraining and things like that, because someone might be new to you or us today. Like we find people come to our channel all the time and they've never watched a video, or they're just learning about mast cell activation syndrome. And I know, for our audience, it's your primary is the ME/CFS and ours is primarily the MCAS, but ultimately they're both chronic illnesses, but they're also just labels. A diagnosis is just a diagnosis. It's more about like what we're going to talk about today. It's like the healing process. How do you actually get at the root cause and heal? So feel free to go into more depth.
Yeah, my understanding with MCAS is there is something quite similar going on. It's just a little bit overly enthusiastic immune response. It becomes very uncomfortable for the person who is experiencing it. So from my understanding, it's a lot of similar things that can be helpful with working with the brain and working with the nervous system. And I hear people talking about it on my channel who have long COVID or ME/CFS. They also have the MCAS diagnosis as well, and POTS and fibromyalgia. There's so much overlap and vaccine injuries. And it just seems that people are coming together and using similar information. Chronic pain is helping a lot of different conditions. You asked about so things about the nervous system that stand out to me. So something that I don't know how much has been talked about here, but two really important things that have helped me to understand this better. And one is that we think about our body's threat assessment systems. We have, the amygdala, the limbic system, our autonomic nervous system, and they're constantly trying to keep us safe, and they're responding to threats. And those neural pathways in the brain, the exact same ones are enacted, whether it's a physical threat or an emotional threat. So it could be a person chasing you with a gun, or like some shame you're carrying around, or some rage, or just some strong emotion in your brain. And it reacts the exact same way. And it uses the same tools it has at its disposal to alert you, which are symptoms. So I just think it's important to understand how big of a role emotions play, because it can sound a bit woo, saying that and touchy-feely, like this isn't real, like I'm really sick, quit talking to me about journaling. But the emotional aspect is really a huge part of this. And then the second piece of this, at least on my channel and the people I interview, we talk a lot about very specific nervous system regulation tools and strategies and brain retraining strategies. So when symptoms come on, this is what you do to try and send messages of safety, and like somatic tracking. And these are all really important tools. But from my reading and my experience and the people that I've interviewed, the magic really happens in those everyday moments. Like 95% of the skills that you're going to learn about regulating your nervous system come in those quieter moments. Like we tend to think of the nervous system like we're on a train track, and then there's a fork coming up, and on one side is fight or flight and the other side is rest or digest, and you have that moment where you have to pull out the right tool and make sure you end up on the good track. But I find it's helpful to think of it more of like a spectrum that you're sort of upregulating or downregulating. And it's just like you wouldn't learn to swim in shark-infested waters, right? No one's going to drop you in the middle of the ocean and say, now figure out how to calmly learn to swim. You're going to start in a kiddie pool. You'll be able to touch the ground. You might have a life jacket on. So it's the same thing with learning these skills around nervous system regulation. We're really setting people up to be unsuccessful if we say, when you have these intense symptoms, now try these tools. It's just really hard to be calm in those moments. So like harness every opportunity that you have. Like you're in line at the grocery store and the person in front of you is going slow and annoying you. There is your moment. Just like, and a good way to think about moment by moment nervous system regulation is staying grounded, which sounds really vague. But if someone that I love, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, his name is Corey Muscara. He's a positive psychology professor. And he talks about how we should go through our days with the aim of staying about 70% in our body and about 30% in the other person's experience. So like when you're in line at the grocery store and you can feel your rage coming up and your frustration and this is taking forever and what is wrong with them? You're out of yourself and you're being your nervous system is being affected by them instead of controlled by yourself. We talk about co-regulation, which can be a really good thing. If you're next to someone who's really soothing and relaxing, and that just generally rubs off on you, and then your nervous system gets all calm and happy. But the same thing happens when that other person's nervous system is in a different place. So it's about thinking about just pausing, take a breath to see, can I get back into my 70%? Can I get myself back here and be control of it, take control of it? And the last thing I'll say about this is that generally we're on autopilot. So with all of the brain retraining and nervous system regulation, we're trying to bring things into conscious awareness. So normally in these little situations every day, there's a stimulus and there's a response. There's a person annoying you at the grocery store, and then there's you with your blood boiling. So you have to add in a third one, a pause, a stimulus, a pause, and then response. And that pause is where the magic happens, where you take a breath, get back into your 70%, and then think, okay, how am I going to react? And then that's how the rewiring happens. And then as you work on it in these small everyday situations, when the bigger stuff comes up, the more intense emotions, the more intense symptoms, you are already so good at this that you're going to be so much better prepared to handle it in those moments.
Yeah, that's so well said. Just like the noticing what's happening within us because of what's happening outside of us, right? And our response and why, and how to get more comfortable with holding more.
Yes. And that nervous system regulation is something that's happening all day long. It's just whether we are actively driving the process or we're sort of just, a puppet with everything else around determining how we feel.
Right. Having our choice, right? The pause and the deciding what to do about it.
Yeah.
I heard
and I love Corey Muscara too.
Isn't he the best?
He's great.
I can't get enough of him.
I have to look him up. I haven't heard of him yet. He's new to me. But yeah, I heard a phrase once that was like, if I could do better, I would. And when I can, I will. So like just being like reminding yourself, like if you blow up at the grocery store, in that moment you didn't have the right tool, but like you can get there, like you will get to that. And that co-regulation piece is really important too. I have a 6-year-old and 6-year-old emotions. I often find myself thinking like, okay, well, what would 6-year-old Jamie think about this? I'd probably have that same emotion. So I actually take myself out of my 70%, put myself in them, but in the pause, so I can then come back and be like, this is how I, as an adult, Jamie, is going to react to the situation.
Yeah, it's an all day, everyday thing for us. And I think with children especially, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So one of your core messages is that symptoms are not the enemy. They're the messengers, right? And this is how we approach things too. Like, what is that symptom trying to tell us? So in your experience, how can people begin to listen to those signals instead of fearing them? That's a big shift.
Yeah, it's a big ask, isn't it? Like you have these awful, unpleasant symptoms, you're suffering, and you're telling people, it's just like, oh, you just don't react to them. Pretend they're not there. And I don't think it's about pretending that they're not there or trying to pretend that they're enjoyable. It's just about reminding yourself that you're safe in that moment and that your body is actually okay. Someone shared this way of understanding it once with me, and I just think it's a really helpful one. Like the same way when you go to the gym and you work out, and then the next couple of days you're going to be a bit sore. You're not freaking out. Like, why am I sore? Is my body broken? Do I need to go to the hospital? Like, this is terrible. You're like, oh, it sucks. It hurts. It's hard to bend down and pick things up. But I knew this was coming. And we find the same thing with ME/CFS and long COVID recovery, sort of the same way you would approach a gym workout. If you've never worked out, you're not going to show up and do an 18-hour gym session because you're going to be laid out for weeks. So it's about, gently expanding your boundaries, and then those symptoms come up, seeing them like a harmless, inevitable, although unpleasant part of the process. And then as much as possible, giving them as little attention as possible and just being curious about them instead of fearful. Like, what does it feel like? Is the symptom moving around? Does it have a color? Like, just be playful. I've even had people say that they will talk about it in a silly voice, or, sing to it to the tune of Happy Birthday. You're like, I've got a new symptom again. Like, just anything, make it a bit silly and take away that fear, and also be very conscious about the language you use, which I'm sure this is things that you guys talk about all the time. But instead of saying, oh, I have a stabbing headache, say, you can dial it down to either make it positive, saying my head's not as comfortable as I would like it to be, or even assigning funny names like, oh, my banana's acting up again. And just, there's so many different things to just take the fear out of it and make it a more neutral thing. And so many strategies to go about that I think just when you hear one that fits, just give it a try.
Yeah. So Danielle had said that, I guess you used an analogy earlier, I'm not so sure, but that it's helpful to remember to practice those nervous system regulation strategies when you're not flaring. And so that's kind of one of our things, is like, it's all about the consistency to build up that toolbox when you're not in a flare, because it's really, really hard when you are in that flare to remember some of the tools, unless it's like what you said, I guess the gym, it's like you've built up that muscle memory a little bit more. And we know that, complex chronic illness is complex. So we often see people feel like really overwhelmed. So what are some of those common traps that you see people fall into when they like try to do like everything right, like, and maybe go too fast?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and something I definitely see in people a lot and hear from people a lot. It's such a challenging one because it's a completely different way to think about recovering from something, different than what most of us have been taught since childhood. And like, I'm thinking about one woman that I interviewed, and it took her decades to recover. And she said, I think one of the reasons it took me so long to recover is I never stopped trying to recover. Like, I was just so stressed and in the zone, and I had my checklists. And when nervous system regulation is at the core of what is bringing on symptoms, that just keeps the alarm bells going. When you're stressed, when you're panicked, when you're watching the clock, when it's like, oh, I thought I'd be better by Christmas. It's Christmas. I'm not better. Things are still not okay. It's keeping that pattern going. So a big thing that so many people I talk to, and what experts are saying, is actually, for the most part, stop trying to recover and shift to finding joy. Any little thing in your day, whether it's if you can get outside and put your toes in the grass, feed some squirrels, listen to some birds. Do you have a little hobby that you enjoy, knitting or something that makes you happy? Because nothing sends a clearer message of safety to your nervous system than you being in a state of joy. So I think people can get overwhelmed and stuck and trying all the tools. And I know Alan Gordon says in his book, The Way Out, the minute you're doing any of these tools and they feel like work or they feel like a chore, drop them, because they're not working for you, because that's not the point of any of this. Anything that you're doing should feel like a fun gift for yourself. And the rest of the time, just focus on trying to live, and maybe grab little moments and do some somatic tracking and, work on those messages to your symptoms. But it's just, I think, understandably getting too stuck in that I need to recover, fist clenched all day, this is my mission state, which unfortunately, it's not like the harder you work, if the faster you get there. It's pretty much the opposite. I don't know what your experience is or what people.
I agree. Yeah. You can't force healing for sure. You can't push through. You can't wish and jump to the end. It's uncomfortable in the middle. Like I see people at two stages of it, like the beginning, like maybe the stage of fear where they're not doing things right to move forward because they're afraid to move forward. Or I see them try to leap to the end and like run through, right? Because it is so super uncomfortable in that healing process. And so it is very much about what you were saying about finding those joyful moments and rewiring and being with what is now. And I find one thing that's really powerful we do in clinic. Sometimes we'll go back to some of the beginning notes because they'll be like, oh, I still don't feel well. But then it's like, you haven't mentioned this symptom in a while. Oh yeah, I haven't felt that in a year. Like, like they forget because they're focused on what's going on now. So it's kind of reflecting back on the little things that have shifted, even if they're really small. I think that's important too.
Yeah, and the nervous system can put on quite the show. Like it can feel like you're not getting anywhere, but sometimes those symptoms moving around and popping up all over the place actually means you're on the right track because you figured out this one. So now it's trying something else, and it's extinction bursts of these tools that it's been using. And also, as you start to feel better, you start to do more and more. And every new activity that you bring in is something where you have to train your brain and nervous system that it's okay. And so some symptoms might come up and that can feel like you're not getting anywhere, but that's just because you're expanding your life. So as you add in, because it can feel like I'm doing all these things and I'm fine. And then I just tried this other new thing and I got a big symptom flare. So clearly I'm not okay. It's like, no, that's just part of the process. It was just a new thing. You're not going backwards. It's just, unfortunately, feeling worse is a part of getting better.
Yeah. And I call it in clinic, I'll call it the Mast Cell cha-cha for us. Like we're 2 steps forward, a couple steps back, 2 steps. And it's so hard on our brain to have that step back is so like soul crushing to us. Because I've gone through this journey too. So it is so hard when you feel like you have a setback mentally. It's the hardest, I feel like, more than physically.
Oh, absolutely. I remember being frustrated so many times. Like I thought I was past this. Like I really thought I was past this point. How am I back here again? Because it can feel like it's like slingshot you all the way back to the beginning when in fact it hasn't. But in the moment it can feel that way, which is
absolutely
can feel insurmountable.
So another question we had was more about like people are often told, right? So like when we have chronic illness that it's all in our head, and it's definitely not. Nervous system, even though we have a brain is in our head, it's not, it's not in our head like we've imagined it. Yeah. However, some of the keys to healing certainly are like the brain and safety centered. Can you share your thoughts on how nervous system regulation plays a role in healing from complex chronic illness?
Specifically complex chronic illness where nervous system regulation
how it's different from just calming down temporarily, but how like the long journey,
Yes, that is a great question, and so many pieces around this. Okay, well, I can speak to the people I work with and the people that I see with ME/CFS and long COVID, and my understanding is that there's a lot of overlap. And the reason that this nervous system regulation piece is so important is because if they are having symptoms, their brain and nervous system still think there's a threat. Like that's 100% the case. So until we can change that message, the symptoms are going to continue. So it's a lot of education, just understanding how symptoms are created. I think most of us used to think they came from our body or just an unfortunate byproduct of being alive. But, they get a message from the body, but our brain creates all of it. It's the control center up there, someone flicking it on, flicking it off, deciding when your symptoms start, when they're going to end. So when you're facing these conditions, for most of the people that I interview is such a huge piece of the puzzle. Some people have some other pieces as well that they have to address. People, of course, have structural pathological things that are happening in their body as well sometimes. So you have to fully assess that with your doctor. But when everything's coming back normal and your doctor's saying there's nothing that can be done and you have all these symptoms all over your body, chances are you're not having a multisystemic organ shutdown. The doctor probably would have caught that, so this screams nervous system dysregulation. So which is why we focus on it so much with these conditions.
Yeah, I think that it's hard because there's like the long game that Kimberly mentioned, and that you just kind of said it's not like about those little symptoms that you have to like evaluate what's physically going on. Like, is there something in the environment that is truly activating, putting on that flipping that switch, right? And so we see it clinically. It's like the people who can't onboard any new food, they can't onboard any supplements, and they are out of mold, right? So like they've taken care of the environmental threat, and now they're still symptomatic. So we definitely see that, like, okay,
right,
where they need to focus. This is where they need to spend their time in order to even onboard the other supports to get like maybe the mold that is in their body, which could still be a threat. That's the complication of MCAS, but we do see a big piece of that. And so a lot of this is about cultivating that safety, right? The ultimate goal is just like reminding yourself that you are safe in any moment. So can you speak to maybe the difference between like just staying positive and truly cultivating the safety, the trust, the connection in our bodies? So like, what does that actually look like? Or what does that, what does that actually look like? And to bring the mind into healing as a partner in the process.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And I stayed optimistic for years, and that got me nowhere. So it's not just be hopeful and believe in the process and you will get there. And so when we've established that the body is generally fine, like we've done all of the tests, we shouldn't have symptoms anymore. And I also think it's important to point out, I'm sure you're aware that there's no human on the planet that you're going to do a head to toe scan that isn't going to come up with some abnormalities. So we have to allow for some normal abnormalities. People are going to have weird stuff in their bones. They're going to have a little bit of latent viruses. You're going to find stuff in brain scans. So if you're waiting for a perfectly clean thing, it's never going to happen. But if the medical professionals have assessed, like, we can't find a medical reason for this, then a big piece of the mindset that is happening is it's not just being optimistic and feeling safe. It's also trusting that your body is actually okay, which can be a hard thing. I know for me, for many, many years, I thought I had so many different things wrong in my body. So getting to a place where my body's actually okay. Like, I am safe right now. I am fine, and everything is okay. And then remembering that when the symptoms come up, okay, it's not actually doing any damage to me. I'm okay. So I don't know if that gets at the heart of your question. I've forgotten what the beginning of it was. So forgive me if I've gotten a little off track.
Yeah, just like the difference between just the optimism and like that truly like cultivating safety and trust in your body being part of the healing process.
Yeah, and that's a good way that you put it, cultivating safe and healing in your body, because some people say, how am I ever going to get past this? Because I live in a country where there's war going on, or I live someplace that is unsafe, or even just in this political climate, I don't feel safe. And the important distinction is that symptoms come on and stick around typically because of a very specific type of fear. Well, there could be any fear that brought them on initially, but the fear that keeps them staying is the fear of the symptoms themselves, the fear that your body is broken, the fear that you're not okay. So your brain, your nervous system are trying to protect you. So there are many people who live in war zones or in, uncertain political climates, and they don't have long COVID, or they don't, like, we are resilient beings. We can handle stress and we can handle fear. It's just sending that message that our body is okay, because ultimately our brain wants us to be alive. You know, that part of our brain that is doing all of our threat assessment doesn't even care if we're happy. So like, I'm suffering all day, every day. Why would it do this to me? He's like, yeah, or she, you're alive, aren't you? I did my job. Patting myself on the back. So yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I sometimes see people do is they're looking for the one or two tools that are going to calm it down without the true deep healing of the patterns, or the I have a lot of stress in my life, and instead of dealing, like taking the stress piece away or lowering that stress, which is some hard decisions, might be around career or whatever, or people in our life, or boundaries, right? That boundary work is so important. Versus, what can I do right now to calm this down right now? It's like so short term versus that long term.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're reminding me of something that Corey Muscara said, big fangirl. He's like, because he talks a lot about meditation. And he said, if you're using meditation just to endure your life, like to make it manageable in a life that is misaligned, it's like, it's not helping you. It's a Band-Aid. It's a short-term fix. And I think that's the same way we unintentionally promote some of these tools, because they can work in the moment, but then they won't bring you lasting relief from chronic symptoms. So what that looks like for different people is going to vary. But the way I explain it, I mean, it can be seeing a therapist, it can be a zillion different things, but I call it unpacking the ugly. And that's just taking a moment, whether that's having a conversation, writing it down in a journal, talking to a therapist about it, and getting at those things that we've been shoving down and carrying around maybe since childhood, that we think are too scary or too ugly to see the light of day, or it was too long ago, why I shouldn't even need to think about them anymore. And just test out, like give it some light first. Just be like, hello, I see you. You're all there. Yep. All right. Yeah, we've got this. We got that. And then just get really honest with yourself. And remember that thoughts aren't truth either. Like people will come up with things like, I don't like being a mother. And they're like, oh, that's terrifying. I have children. But then I interviewed Nicole Sachs. I'm not sure if you're aware of her, but that was one of her examples. But she said the more she broke it down, she didn't actually hate being a mother, but it was something she had been carrying around inside, or shameful things about ourselves. So just to release them. And some people find it really helpful just to do this on actual paper and just write down all of this stuff and then light it on fire after and just be done with it. But whatever you can do to get at what got you to this place in the first place. It likely wasn't like COVID was the trigger, or the vaccine, or the virus, or the mold. But something happened that you stayed stuck there where lots of other people don't. So, and this, you might be looking back all the way back to childhood. I was interviewed recently by Dr. David Clark, and he talks a lot about generational trauma. He's like, we're going to start with your grandmother. How was she raised? I'm like, a lot of trauma. What about your mom? Oh my goodness, trauma since childhood. And now this is the person who raised me. So some people think, well, I don't have any trauma. Well, how equipped were the people who were taking care of you in your formative years? That can put your brain into a high alert state. So there's a lot to unpack. And it's a great question because for long-term success with being free from chronic symptoms, you have to get at the root for many people.
Absolutely. Yeah. We get into, big T, little T trauma, right? Yeah. And I know me coming into it, it was like, well, I don't have big T trauma. I mean, people do. And I'm like, okay, so the nervous system thing isn't really me. Yeah. But then as I dug deeper, right, you get into all the little T, all the patterns we have from childhood. Yeah. And so getting is so important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, I want to put this out there too, because this can sound very overwhelming. You need to unpack all your trauma going back to your grandmother before you can feel well. And that's not completely the case. Like I love Dr. John Sarno said, if all my patients had to unpack all their trauma to be well, not a single one would have recovered. Like you got to keep it at a manageable level. Like Nicole Sachs talks about you having an emotional reservoir that you carry around, like picturing a beaker in your chest, and we stuff things in there. And it's a good thing and a protective thing, because you don't always want to feel every moment in every emotion. But if you're just stuffing things in there, at some point it overflows. So just take some scoops out once in a while. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to figure everything out, but just get your load you're carrying down to a manageable level, so your nervous system alarm bells aren't going off in a state.
Yeah. And you have to have those tools that we learn, right, to be able to handle that in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's about breaking the pattern too. So even if like grandma had that, and so mom had it, handed that pattern down, maybe it's not like a specific event or trauma, but just the pattern, just like you said, that the pattern was stuffed down, and that's what you're releasing. You're changing, you're breaking the cycle from that generational perspective.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, Kimberly, do you have another question for?
So you often talk about incremental healing and baby steps. Can you give a few practical examples of what that might look like in like a real life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's different. I've interviewed some people that like they learn about this stuff, they get it, and they're out doing things really quickly with really small symptom pushback flares. But for the majority of people that I see and I interview and talk to, it's just a much more effective approach to start very small. So here's an example. I've interviewed 2 different people that would get massive symptom flares every time they drove their car. And they're like, it's just driving the car. I didn't even go far. I just went to the store a couple minutes away, and I just felt awful after. And it feels like that's starting small. But starting small for someone like that, if that's what they're going through, might be one day you just go out and you just look at your car, and then you go back inside. And then the next day, maybe you open the door and you sit down. You don't start it, but just sitting there. Work on nervous system while you're in there, keeping it down, and so forth and so forth. And it's a lesson in patience, because it's ridiculously slow, but everyone's nervous system is different, and it depends how long and how ingrained this wiring in your brain is. So the best approach seems to be, however small you think you should start, dial that back by another 100 and then start there, and to start really sort of bouncing out your boundaries little bits. Because for most people, when they try too much, then they get this massive symptom flare, and then you're laid out, and it really stalls your progress. And then also it's just horrible to go through. So
yeah, it's similar to what we do in clinic with onboarding foods or supplements and things like that. Just the slow titration. And sometimes it is like buying that one piece of food, like a fruit or something, and putting it on the counter and seeing it every day, or naming it, or touching it, or putting it even on their skin before they try to ingest it.
I love that. Yeah,
we see, kind of like we call them hypersensitive. We kind of have a spectrum of where we rank people from hypersensitive to robust. And we titrate supplements, we can titrate nervous system work. But it is understandable that when you are ill and you are sensitive to everything, whether it's your car or food, right, that we do create some of that hypervigilance. So if someone's feeling stuck or sensitive to like everything, we're afraid to try anything new. So maybe even they're afraid to try a nervous system tool. What's one place that you'd recommend that they begin?
Good question. Well, first I would say, well done on being curious about this. The science on this is changing so fast, and the experts out there right now all agree that there isn't a single condition on the planet where nervous system regulation isn't a part of the equation. It's just how big of your equation it will be. So you're always going to be doing yourself a favor. I would start just with the education piece, because just really understanding how it works, why it does what it does, how symptoms are created. That's the starting place. Like if you see in virtually any recovery program or with coaching, that's where everyone starts, because you need to understand what's going on before it can make any kind of sense. And then, like I said, nervous system regulation it's best started small as well. So like I said, just a little bit of breath work when you feel yourself tensing up or something small coming on, and just practice in those little moments, just pulling back into yourself, focusing on your breath, and those little moments build up to much bigger. I mean, there's a wealth of tools out there and so many things to teach. But if you're brand new to this, I really think the education piece is where to start. I'm sure you do as well. I've got a ton of videos that educate about this on my YouTube channel. I can link some here if that's helpful. But it really opens your eyes to what the next steps are.
Yeah, we have a nervous system reboot course, which is like primarily the education piece, and then a roadmap of how to create like a customized nervous system plan, because there's like our approach is the limbic as well as vagal, and doing them at the same time, so one doesn't more hypervigilant than the other. Yeah, so Raelan, it was so great to have you on. I just want to let our audience know where they can find you. Let me see. So your book is called Finding Freedom, and you can find that at mastcell360.com/Finding Freedom. And her website is raelanagle.com. So, and she also has an amazing YouTube channel, like I said, with so many stories of hope on there. So that is where you can find her. And now let's jump into live Q&A. Just a quick reminder, please keep your questions on topic. Only submit your question once. So if you already submitted it, it's in there. We're looking at it. I'm going to sort through those in just a second. And please know that we're unable to answer in-depth health questions. All right. So let's see. What are people interested in knowing or asking you?
And maybe while you're looking at that, I'd just like to put out a short disclaimer about, thank you for mentioning my book. I wrote it immediately after I recovered. This was 6 years ago. My understanding of my recovery has dramatically changed since then. So people tell me they still enjoy the book. It tells my story. They're like, it's like I'm hearing my story. But my understanding of how I got well has definitely evolved as our understanding of neuroscience and the nervous system has evolved. So just take that part of it, if you do buy it, thank you, with a grain of salt. And my YouTube channel and website will have much more up-to-date information.
Great. It's amazing how 2020, looking back at journey is, right? Like, oh, now I get this whole piece of why this is my life. And it's always evolving, right?
Yeah, and which is exciting. Like, we know a book I wrote 5 years ago is now out of date. Like, we know so much more about recovery than we did 5 years ago. So,
yeah. I wrote a book, a memoir, getting like it's a pregnancy guide, and mold. I literally learned about mold and MS the month after I my book, and I was like, I can update that.
Yeah, it would be a never-ending update journey. I could rewrite it today, and next year I'd have to rewrite it again.
I 100% agree, and that goes into I saw the comment earlier, and I might have lost it, but somebody mentioned like healing is not a linear journey.
Oh my goodness!
And we know everyone on this call, everyone on the three of us, but everyone watching this should know that healing is not linear.
It's definitely not. I heard it explained once that it's more like looping. Like, I used to think of it like a up and down or back and forth. It's like you're spiraling, but slowly upwards. But it feels like, how am I still back here in these behaviors and these symptoms? And then you come up, and over time, if you zoom out, you see the lows aren't as low and the highs are getting higher. But it is you're going to keep going through the stuff as you go through it.
That's how I see it too. Layers.
Yeah.
And you come back to some things and you realize how much you healed that because it's not the same. And then the next layer.
Yeah.
Frustrating, but true.
Mary's saying she's incrementally healing. So that's just what we're talking about. She's getting her life back and looking for her true self and her true values.
Yeah. Mary's one of our clients. And she's really leaned into the nervous system work and has had amazing results with that. So
that's amazing, Mary. So happy for you. Good job doing the work. I know it's not easy.
Yeah. Okay. Joni's asking, can one heal in toxic relationships or a toxic environment?
Great question. It's my opinion, my experience from just working with people and talking to people is that it will be more challenging, especially when we're looking at nervous system regulation, but it's definitely not impossible. Many people I've interviewed were in stressful circumstances and they didn't have to blow up their life to get better, for symptoms to get away. So I think if you can zero in on that reminder of your nervous system wants to know that you are safe, that your body is safe. And a way that you can do that is also through building boundaries. So if you can, in this relationship, are actively putting up boundaries and showing your brain and nervous system that you're taking care of yourself, that's another way to show safety. I'm sorry to hear if this is what you're currently in right now, how incredibly unfair to have to be dealing with multiple major stressors in life. But yeah, I would encourage you to get some support, some counseling, something to help you through it, someone to talk to. And if it is, a truly unsafe relationship, of course, to please get out of it. But yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Not impossible. You can do it.
Tana's saying that she has EDS, fibromyalgia, and long COVID, as well as MCAS, and she's new to your information videos. So Tana, it's great to have you here with us today.
Hey, nice to meet you. And welcome to the laundry list of diagnoses club. It's an interesting thing, all these diagnoses. I think they can sometimes help and sometimes hurt. I find that people get the most success, generally speaking, with their recovery when they worry less about the labels and more about understanding why the symptoms are there. And it can start to feel daunting, like you're never going to recover when you're like, I have these 9 things. It's like, oh, how am I ever going to fix all of that? But generally, they seem to overlap and have
cascade as they heal. I found for me, like you lose one and they all kind of start to
they're all buddies, they're connected.
And people often, like, we're a health consulting clinic, so we don't diagnose or prescribe or treat. Like, it's purely education, and helping people understand the pieces that have been missed maybe by mainstream conventional approaches. And I think a lot of people are like, how do I get the MCAS diagnosis? And I'm kind of like, do you need it? I mean, maybe for insurance, but I never received an official one, but it resonated so much with me that I just started following MC360 before I worked here. And I was like, this makes so much sense. I got to do this in this order. And this is, the improvement that happened just from getting to the root cause was so helpful. So yeah, those labels are sometimes hard.
Yeah. And you don't want them too much of your identity either. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow there. But
trying to get as many questions answered as possible. All right. So Maria's asking, when do you know when you're really done? Or is it that you have to work a lifetime because our system is more sensible?
That is such a great question, and something that we talk about a lot. This, magical 100% finish line that most of us concluded does not exist. And you're setting yourself up for stress to think that it does. And it's not that you're never going to be, quote unquote, 100% better. It's just that you're always going to have symptoms the rest of your life. I know many of us go through this period once we're well, questioning every time we feel unwell. And we're like, uh-oh, is it back? What is this? And we always want our threat assessment systems, our limbic system, our brain, our amygdala, our nervous system to be working and alerting us to things. But the thing that happens once you come through this is that you come through with the education and the understanding and the tools to deal with what's going on. So how I've come to define full recovery is you are chronic symptom free. So you're never going to be stuck in this ever again because you've got the tools, and you'll have little, buzzes from your nervous system. And I talk to it and I thank it. And I'm like, thank you. I feel that little back pain. All right. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm not I'm having a week, aren't I? And thank you for alerting me with something so small. No need to lay me out in bed. I got you. We're going to deal with this. And then it goes away. So yeah, it's and it's an ongoing journey in that all the tools we learn to get past this, we have to keep doing them, because that's what keeps us past it. It gives you the tools to stay chronic symptom free moving forward.
Yeah. Josh is asking, how does one differentiate the nervous system being the main root cause of symptoms as opposed to something physical like mold, Lyme, dysbiosis?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, but there are some helpful checklists you can go through. They're not diagnostic tools, but these symptoms coming from the nervous system, and we have to all agree on a name because we've got so many like neuroplastic symptoms or mind-body symptoms or functional symptoms, whatever we want to call them, generally behave a certain way. And I don't know if it's possible for me to add something after this, but I can add a link to one of these lists that you can go through. Again, not a diagnostic tool, but if you're checking a lot of boxes, it might indicate that these are neuroplastic symptoms. So things like, do they come on? Do your symptoms come on in a time of stress? Do they get worse with stress? Are they on both parts of your body at the exact same time? Like, for example, it's really unlikely like both your elbows are going to suddenly hurt. That symmetrical pain is quite unusual. Does it move around in your body? Also quite unlikely that you have so many different things in your body that are malfunctioning. Is it affected by weather? Does it get better when you are happy? Do you feel better when you're happy? Some people find, not suggesting this as a tool, but because alcohol shuts down your fight or flight system. So some people find that when they consume alcohol, their symptoms go away because that system, I'm struggling with the S's today, is calmed down. However, there's a rebound effect there. So definitely don't use that as a tool, because once the alcohol wears off, your fight or flight actually comes back stronger and you're going to have more symptoms. But there are general things that we can look at to get an idea of what might be the cause.
Yeah. And those two things can be interrelated too. Some of those symptoms can drive the nervous system. The nervous system state makes our immune system weaker, so more likely for infections to stick around. So we usually say both and look at both. I mean, the mold you can test, which is really nice, and really reliable testing. And then, like she was saying, there's definitely some ways to. And we have a nervous system dysregulation quiz, which was eye-opening to me as a client to see, because I was like, no, the trauma's not the piece. This is the piece.
Yeah.
Doing that quiz was like eye-opening, like, oh, no, there's some things to work on there. And it's usually the combo of the both of them. Yeah.
And good point, too, when you're looking at this, it isn't just looking at the symptoms. Do I tend to be high anxiety? Am I, a people pleaser? Am I a perfectionist, an overachiever? These personality or ways of behaving that we know have our nervous system on high alert most of the time.
Yeah. Sorry, don't mean to pop up some of those comments. So Kim, this one may be a little bit more for you. I don't think Raelen deals with the mold sphere as much, but maybe if she shares this video with her community, if it resonates with some people wondering about why the nervous system piece is maybe not working for them. But Sherry's been trying to ignore the mold, thinking it was just nervous system. Mm-hmm. It's just some pain-free videos, but she recently encountered mold and had that flare. So is there truly something with mold that she should stay away from it?
Yeah, I mean, I would test. I mean, you can test your body, you can test your house. You can start with the body, right? That's where I started. Just like, okay, have I been exposed to mold? It shows past or present. Then, let me check my environment to make sure before I do something. So I think it is important to do that because the mold can dysregulate the nervous system as well. So it's important, I feel like, to look at both. I have seen clients who just do the nervous system work and ignore the mold, and you can get sicker, right? Because of air quality. And then I've also seen people who got out of mold and didn't do the nervous system piece and still be dysregulated and not feel well. So I feel like it's a little bit of both, but I would suggest the beautiful thing is you can test yourself for that mold piece and see if that is an issue for you. Yeah, your nervous system might be letting you know about something you don't see. Yeah. I'll tell you, my nervous system was the first thing that told me about things. It can sense things that we don't consciously know, or in a way to protect us. And I think it sometimes can send that. So I think it's worth checking your environment and the mold piece out. And if that's not, and I would say work on both. I mean, it sounds like definitely some nervous system piece there too.
Okay. Let's see. I think we have time for one more. We're at the hour mark. Yeah, so this one kind of plays into, it's hard when you mentioned a little bit earlier where you took like it was like a full-time job, right, to heal, right? And so some people find it really hard to work when they're experiencing chronic illness. So how have you felt with needing to work? So Lisa specifically can't tolerate temps past 62 degrees. Not working creates financial stress, but stressful environment for work can trigger symptoms. It was not working for her. So,
oh, Lisa, I feel for you, and you're not alone. Definitely, I suspect millions, probably hundreds of millions of people in the world are in this place trying to figure this out. Like, I can't work. I just can't work, and then you don't work, and financial stress can be crippling. It's a challenging one. I wish we could have a conversation, Lisa, you and I, so I could ask you some more questions, because it's, it's not the type of thing I think that any of us can give you like, here's what you should do. It's unfortunately something that you're going to need to determine on your own when you're thinking about things like, are there ways I can change our financial situation so the financial stress is less if I take time off? Are there things we could cut back on? Are there cheaper places we could live? Is there a maybe happy medium with the work? Could you be doing different work or less work? Maybe it's bringing in less money, but it's something that doesn't cause you a lot of stress and makes focusing on yourself and your recovery be more feasible. A lot of people, virtually everyone I talk to, is reluctant to ask for help, and they're embarrassed and they don't want to bother people, and they think people will not want to. But most of the time, people in your life are honored if you reach out to them and say, hey, I'm struggling. I need some help, whether it's with, things around the house that makes working more feasible for you because they come and do that, whatever it might be. And people in your life, when they find out that you've been really struggling and that you didn't reach out to them, they can actually feel a bit hurt. So people are likely, if you do have some people around, a lot more willing and wanting to help out than you think. It's a tough situation. I wish I had an exact answer for you, but my heart goes out to you, Lisa, and I hope you find something, a balance that makes this all doable for you.
I've seen a lot of clients do well with working from home or working part-time or flexible.
Yeah.
Where when they're feeling better, they can work. And
that was one thing that saved me. And it's now we're in this post-pandemic world. There are many more remote options, thankfully, but I was working remotely before the pandemic. And even that was still really hard, but it was the only thing that made it feasible for me. So yeah, I don't know what kind of work you're doing, Lisa, if there's a different option. I know change is hard, but clearly what you're doing now is really hard too. So it might be worth.
Yeah, I was in functional freeze when I actually found Mast Cell 360. I was going to work and I'd come home and I'd sit on the couch and feel like I couldn't actually do anything else after that. And I had I think he was 2 at the time.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's really hard to be a mom. And so if there are moms on here, like we completely understand it's hard, whether you're the mom with chronic illness or a mom of someone with chronic illness, right? There's all these stressors. And finding Mast Cell 360 and applying the order of operation. So starting with the nervous system, learning about my root causes and then changing careers to a remote position really were really beneficial for my healing journey. And then before that, I had actually gone part-time too. So like I, tried the part-time and was still a little bit in burnout. And so I was able to find something that truly allowed me to rest and take care of my body in the way it needed to. So Raelen, thank you so much for being here with us today. And Kimberly, of course, as always. Do either of you have some parting words for our audience?
I just would want to say from my experience I've interviewed 250 people so far, full recovery stories, and talked to thousands more, I'm sure. And I have not seen a case where someone has too many diagnoses, they're too far gone, they've had it for too long, their symptoms are too severe, they've got these unique special things going on. Maybe they're don't think quite the same as that. Whatever it is, I feel like I've heard just about all of it, and recovery is possible. So I really encourage you to and commend you that you're here and you're still trying and you're looking for your answers. And I believe that you'll find them and that they're out there, and to not give up until you find the approach that works for you. And remember that doesn't mean working harder, just living, being joyful, and then taking a peek every once in a while to see what new information is there. Is there a new strategy, something that could help me? But yeah, definitely keep at it. You've got this.
Yeah. And I'd say listen to your body, right? The inklings that it sends you. I feel like it gives us a lot more information than testing or something alone. So listening to that intuition piece and getting it back in touch and trusting that a little bit, and staying curious about it without trying to fix it, but trying to stay curious about what's going on and how can I change the situation.
Yeah, always staying curious. I just want to remind everyone that you can find Raelen at raelanangle.com. And if anyone is looking for how to work with Mast Cell 360, I'll just throw this up here real quick. We have 2 tiers of support: foundational, which is our strategy session. These are 50-minute strategy calls designed to kind of help you get to that next step. What is your current case? We review in detail what is your health history, and we come up with some real actionable items. And then our advanced track is more long-term, comprehensive, ongoing support with a lead practitioner as well as health coaching. All of this is open to our international community, and you can find us at mastcell360.com/application. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us today, everyone. It was so good to be with you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.